they'd run up there and get right behind him, and the air'd pick them up, and first thing you know, they're 100 yards behind. They'd work their way back and back and back and get pretty close, and then bam, they're gone again. One-on-one, there was no passing at all. Of all the races we've run so far, I think the air showed up the most at Pocono than it has any place we've run, because everybody got caught up in it to what the 19 was doing. He was relaxed, and he let the car be relaxed, and it was making better time than it was if he was in there digging around.
Okay, Richard. Had a normal rain at Pocono and a 2-hour delay.
You're always going to have some kind of weather at Pocono, no matter.
Yeah.
But they did get it started. It cleaned up perfect. I guess, a couple hours behind. And the crowd stayed, man. Did you see all them people up there?
I couldn't believe it, because when they was doing all the pre-race and everything, the grandstand was empty. But there was a lightning delay, too.
Yeah, they told everybody.
Yeah, so when they did come back, and I got on the television about just as they started, and I couldn't believe the crowd.
Yeah.
And I it's just been like the last 3 or 4 races, Richard. It starts out like it's going to get really boring, and then it got picked up on the restarts, picked everything up.
That was the only thing that saved anything about the race, because once them cars got going and they got in line, they stayed in line, and it didn't show that bad until the last part of the race, and then the top 5 or 6 cars, after they throwed the green flag there at last, that's where they stayed. They didn't even pass each other. They'd run up there and get right behind him, and then they'd lose it in a corner or down the straightaway somewhere. And the air'd pick them up, and first thing you know, they're 100 yards behind. And they'd work their way back and back and back and get pretty close, and then bam, they're gone again. And none of those cars passed each other. And it was the only car that really made any time at the last of the race was the 6 car.
But
the six car lost the race for itself, I think.
How many times, though?
Well, I don't know, but I know that one time he come in and had to go back to the back of the line, but he done worked his way up to the front.
I know.
Pretty good. And, he started way back there in the back. I don't know. But the deal was, overall, he was the best car. He just got made between him and the pit crew or whatever, they made the mistake and got him back there. But, he went from, at last, I think he went from 20th or something and made it up to, 9th, 8th or 9th? You mean?
He's 9th.
You know what I mean? I mean, he was the only one that I seen pass cars. The only other time that you'd see pass cars was maybe 2 cars would get together and the third car would catch the draft of all of them and pass them all.
Yeah, they'd make a mistake.
The only time that at the last of the race, the only time any time passed was when there was 2 or 3 cars. One-on-one, there was no passing at all.
Yeah,
and it just,
And it got separated like that.
It got separated, and it stayed the same. And those cars were all running the same speed.
Yeah.
You mean the top 5 or 6 run exactly the same speed but they'd run a good lap, and then they'd catch up, and then the air'd get them, and then they'd go back.
But coming up on the strategy part of it, Richard, I guess when they got to 40 laps, they was in the window,
right.
Fuel, and people started dropping off, and a lot of them dropped off, and then the 42 and the 43 stayed out. I said they need to get in, so the 43 come in with about 36 to go, and John Hunter come in the next lap, and he was on pit road when the caution come out.
Is that right? I don't remember that part.
And so he was okay too, but he only got 2 tires.
Yeah.
I think that's where I don't know, but they made a good decision there.
He stayed up front.
But
how did the 43 get behind then? Because he was running up there, in fact, he was running with the 42.
If they changed 4 tires, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But up to that time, they had some pretty good pit stops.
They did have.
That's a change for them.
But that's I'm gonna bring the 6 up again. He stayed out and
got caught.
Got caught,
yeah.
and he had to pit under caution, and all the people that already pitted went by him. That's the best way, I guess, to describe it.
You know, I guess the way the deal was, the 19 probably stayed up there, up in the top 3 or 4 more than anybody else, because the 11 got way behind one time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I thought the 17 was going to be better because he went up there and charged up pretty good. But, you know, there at last, when he got in line, he couldn't go anywhere in it. And the 11 car looked good to begin with. But then when he got back in the crowd, you know, he really struggled trying to pass people too. And again, we go back. The only one I seen that really could overcome most of that stuff was the 6 car.
But he was still 9th, and there was a big separation.
Yeah, but he started 20th. Yeah, them other guys started up front. You know what I mean?
But there's a big separation between 5th and 6th place.
Oh yeah,
Richard,
definitely.
You know? So,
you know, they're at last the 42, the 5 car, and the 42. I guess was trying to race. I don't know, but the 5 car couldn't get to him. I mean, you know, he ran the same speed, but and then the ones behind the 5 car was the same way, and it was just one of those deals. That of all the races we've run so far, I think the air part of it showed up the most at Pocono than it has any place we've run, because everybody got caught up in it. Some of the races we've seen be 2 or 3 cars get caught up, but Pocono, all the cars got caught up.
The whole field got caught up.
The whole field got caught up.
But, you know, I guess Bubba broke a rotor.
He probably did. You know, he'd done that up there before, too.
Have they?
Yeah.
And maybe there was one other.
But he was lucky. Lucky this time where it happened, he didn't hit the wall. It tore the car up. I mean, knocked the wheel off of it.
He didn't hit all that hard.
But,
he did
yeah.
hit, you know. But I don't know.
I think the 35 car, and the 45 car, and the 23 car comes out of the same stable, and all 3 of them people had brake problems.
You brought that up. That's right.
And I don't know where they was trying, you know, something different. And about the only thing they can change on the brake deal is
the flow,
the pads.
Well, you know, but the air to it too, Richard.
Well, that's one of the things. But I think everybody put air to them. But if they had maybe softer pads, or harder pads, or whatever it was, and you know all 3 of them had the same thing.
You bring that up. I'd forgot about that. Yeah. But you know, we've been before. I remember being at Richmond one time, and I don't, maybe you as a driver or something, I don't remember, but we was getting the brakes too cool.
Yeah.
And they chattered.
Yeah. See, that's one thing that probably gives us trouble at Pocono, is that you use the brakes and you get them real hot, but then you run down the straightaway and get all that air in there and they cool off. So going from real hot to real cold to real hot to real cold finally just disintegrates the thing. And I think they was having, and maybe on some of that stuff they were getting too cool because it was cold, going from real cold to real hot.
But you know, of course we're pulling for the 42 and the 43, and last 5 or 6 races they've made some improvements.
They have started
where they needed to running, qualifying.
Well, the qualifying's been good, a lot better. And they start up front, and you know, they're kind of able to hold their own. But this time last year was running 20 or 25th. Now they're running from 10th to 15th.
Yeah.
So you know, as a group, sometimes, and then it's according to how you finish at the end of the race. But they have improved themselves a whole lot.
But then you go into a fuel saving place.
We go to Atlanta.
Going to Atlanta.
Okay, then they get into the drafting deal. That's just a notch down from Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The handling comes in a little bit more at Atlanta than it does Daytona or Talladega. But the drafting stuff still works the same way. And then, like you say, you're going to run here we got to make these laps. You know, even on the fuel saving deal, they seem to think that the 19 yesterday was on a fuel saving deal, but no matter what he was doing, he was running as fast as anybody. And so sometimes it's not the way you're using fuel, it's the way you handle yourself. And a lot of times you don't run it quite as hard and you can run faster. I don't know how to explain how that happens.
I wish you would explain it to me, because at Bridgehampton that time we had a 100-mile road course. And you got a pretty good lead in about 3 laps, and I went out and slowed you down. We didn't have radios, and you only picked up a second and a half.
Well, okay, I guess that's where I'm coming back to what the 19 was doing. What happened, he was relaxed, and he let the car be relaxed, and it was making better time than it was if he was in there digging around.
If you can sit up and relax a little bit on the throttle getting in the corner, it's a lot easier, I'll tell you that.
Makes it easier on you and the car. But the Atlanta race ought to be really interesting because, you know, we're going from a road course to a racetrack with 3 corners. Now we're going back to what I call really a super speedway. Yeah. And so you've had all these different kinds of racetracks, and it takes a different way to approach the thing. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing really how everybody develops, how things work out.
And who shows up the best this week, you know.
And then we're going to we run Saturday night too. So
I wish,
even though it's going to be hot, the track itself won't be that hot.
It won't be as hot. I was just thinking, I was thinking before you brought that up, would be more interesting. Okay.
Oh, well, that would be good.
It would have been more interested if the track.
Well, it'll stay the same all day. In other words, sometimes during the race, the track will either get hotter or colder. On Saturday night running, the track, all it'll do is get cooler.
Yeah, I know. But I was saying I wish it might be a better race if they run it while the track was hot and make more handling show up, you know, is what I'm trying to say, before you cut me off again.
Go for it. All right. Me watching the race on TV and the way I used to run the track, yes. And I think it's because of the way the cars handle. A lot of those corners and stuff, in fact, all the corners, when we used to run and stuff, the people run lower, and, you know, they run, in 1 and 2, they run all the way to the inside. 3 and 4, I mean, tunnel turn, there's just one groove through there, so it wasn't no deal. But going to 3, coming out on the front stretch, I seen them guys running in the middle of the track. We couldn't run in the middle of the track. We had to cut the corner short. But again, the cars are so much different. The tires are different. So they really basically run a different groove than what we used to run.
I don't remember that much about it. One thing about it, NASCAR's first race was up there in '74, and
before that,
and me and Richard went up there. Our Petty Enterprise with Richard went up there in '72 and '73 in a USAC race on our weekends off. That's how much we wanted to race, and won in '74, I guess.
One of the races.
Yeah, or running one in '73, and then we went back, I think, and won the first race in NASCAR because we was familiar with the place, I guess, a little bit.
I think they did a super job. Basically, you know, we've had other people doing the filming and all that stuff. And I don't know if it's the same crowd or what, but the new deal was really probably the best coverage that I've been able to see. Of course, I've probably watched more of it on TV because I hadn't been going to the races like I used to. But the big deal is they had some new tricks, new deals on the screen, new coverage. I mean, they was even telling how much gas mileage and stuff the people were getting. So it's getting more and more sophisticated, and it's a lot easier for the people at home to keep up with it than it is for the people at the racetrack.
Yeah, I know that it was different, but I don't guess I tried to grade it that much, when I just took what they give me and enjoyed it. And but and just to bring it up, Pocono was delayed 2 hours, and I guess they just set themselves back and done it good. But they carried it out even though it was a 2 hour delay, and I don't guess that bothered them any.
Yeah, we used to make mistakes coming. I've spun out coming in pit road.
How many times?
Well, I was just spun one time on that one race, okay? And then I've spun out making, get down to the pit deal. And used to, you run wide open down pit road, and you get too close and you panic coming to brake and stuff. And I spun out a couple of times, and the car went all the way around, and instead of them going around and change right side tires, Dale and them would just get out and change the tires. Then I'd spin around and go on. So, if you run enough times, you're going to make mistakes, that's for sure.
We was at Michigan one time, and probably leading the race and had a good car. And at that time, you would go around and change the right side tires, and then somebody would take the lugs off the left side tires. And when we come back around the car to change the lefts, Maurice had took the lugs off the left, dropped the jack on the right, come around. Richard took off. Under caution, took off, 2 mile track. Maurice tried to stop him, tore the window net out, and made it all the way around with no lugs on the left side. And I don't know, that couldn't be repeated.
That was good driving, okay?
Some of your good thinking, too.
It was good for the winners and the runs that running good. As far as from a spectator standpoint, there were some highlights in it, but not enough good highlights or good racing for me to call it a good race.
I'll go along with what Richard said. It wasn't up to same level as what we've seen in the past 2 or 3 weeks.